You're listening to the Screaming Pods Network.
Something's coming.
Stand by. Hold on to your hats. Here we go.
Welcome to the Screamcast, episode 151. I am Sean DeRager. In the background is Charlie and Bailey fighting. They seem to not want to be quiet right now. Today's episode, we are going to be diving into all things Vinegar Syndrome. I have a lot of, people are going to be kind of coming in and out of this episode. So, it's going to be fun. So, Brandon Upson is going to be joining us from Vinegar Syndrome. Rob Hunter will be joining us, as well as BJ will be closing out the show with some backroom action. But first of all, with me right now, kicking off the show, is Stephanie Crawford. What's up?
Hey, I feel like I'm an audio dog sitter right now, and I'm digging it.
Yeah. For some reason, right now, I mean, I need to get, if it wasn't I don't know, frowned upon, I would find some sort of sedatives for my dogs. But
if only society would let me drug up my dog.
They are in full effect right now, but we're just going to go with it, and who cares? So, whatever. I forgot to mention, Josh Obershaw will be joining us for a short news segment after this as well. So I want to make sure I cover everyone that's going to be joining the podcast, and a lot of fun today. So let's dive right into this. Stephanie, we are going to cover a couple things. We've kind of touched on them a little bit, but I figured we would kind of dive into these a little bit further. There is the two sets of 5 years and five films in 5 years, volumes 1 and 2 that Vinegar Syndrome put out, and Volume 2 was Horror and Exploitation. Volume 1, of course, was the Golden Age Erotica. And I, as a point, I'm not into erotica too much, not into the porno. And it's just people have asked me to try. I know Brad and BJ have teased me to no end. And I bought this out of kind of just showing my support for Vinegar Syndrome. But whatever. So Let's dive into this first. I didn't watch them all, but I did because Brad has been hounding about this movie ever since we started the show. But I finally watched Hot and Saucy Pizza Girls. And this is a hilarious conversation to have with two dogs fighting in the background. But at least it's not my kids.
If people want Sean to talk about erotica, that's what they're going to have to put up with.
Exactly. So yeah, I finally watched this, and I think it reaffirmed to me that I'm just not into the porn. I'm sorry, everybody. I've tried. But yeah, it was, I don't know, Brad has mentioned, this is like a comedy, and if you take the comedy, take all the naughty stuff out, this is just a comedy. It was okay. I don't know what are your thoughts on this? I know that you decided to give this a go too, and I think I'm interested in hearing.
Yeah, the two prudes we tried.
Exactly, starting to show off the two prudes. Last week were the old people complaining about all the young kids. This week were the two prudes complaining about porn. Hey, if it's your thing, it's your thing.
We're cool and we're
totally
supportive,
cool.
But yeah. No, and I do love that they preserve these and make them so readily available, because it's kind of cool seeing when you'd see old photos from 42nd Street with all the movies that were playing, and now they're on Blu-ray. That's kind of crazy. That's amazing. I'm with you. I'm not a big porno watcher. I don't have anything against consensual adults filming themselves, whether there's a plot or not. But you know, it's not usually my jam. And this thing, I can see why this is probably one people would recommend. They're like, no, you might like this one because it does kind of have that goofiness that a lot of exploitation or sexploitation films had. Except, I mean, John Holmes is in it, and it's like full penetration from multiple angles, like right away. So they're
not
like
messing around. Like, just in case you thought you were watching something else, here you go.
Is a porno. No, there's hijinks on roller skates and, you know, cute, goofy stuff. But yeah, it's a funny. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I try to imagine people sitting there in the theater back in the day, and I guess it's kind of like Deep Throat, just contending with the pretty explicit sex and a very goofy tone. Mm-hmm. And I don't get it. I mean, I'm glad it's there, but I don't get it.
I couldn't imagine going to a theater and watching films like this. I guess people were used to that, but that would just, I don't know. You know, sitting with a bunch of strangers watching this unfold on a big screen just seems very odd to me. But hey, if it's your jam, it's your jam. They did a pretty good job. I mean, it looked great in Blu-ray as far as quality goes. So this set has Too Naughty to Say No, Hot and Saucy Pizza Girls, Ribald Tales of Canterbury, Prisoner of Paradise, which I know that Brad has talked about as well, and then there's what does that say? What? Dixie Ray. Okay. Here, the cover has a bunch of handwriting, so I couldn't read the last one. Dixie Ray, Hollywood Star. So, you know, if you've been wanting to grab these because they were only on DVD, Brandon and I will discuss this a little bit further on why they decided to put these out. So that's available. And if you've been wanting to grab those, you know, this is probably the best presentation you can grab these and go for it. You go with your bad self.
Bad self. And 5 in one set, that's pretty good. It's a lot of up close pubic hair. It's a good time. Man, I'm selling this.
Oh well, hey, you know, I think we have to have the balance. I think on the show, and I think that's good. It's good to have a balance.
And that's a great thing about Vinegar Syndrome.
Yeah. Moving along here, and I haven't got to watch through all the rest of these, but this is the horror and exploitation set. But you watched them all, so I wanted to kind of go through these really quick. And I know Brad has talked about The Mothers quite a bit, and I believe he's mentioned Murder on the Emerald Seas, but we didn't really dive too deep into it because, you know, Murder on the Emerald Seas especially wasn't available because it was like a limited edition DVD. And but this set includes The Mothers, Flesh and Bullets, Hang Up, Dungeon of Horror, and Murder on the Emerald Sea. So I wanted to get your take on these since you dove through them. You mentioned The Mothers last time we talked about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts on the rest of these titles?
Well, The Mothers is definitely my favorite. I just recently watched Terminal Island, Stephanie Rothman's movie, and there were a lot of parallels. It was that it'd be a good like weird prison escape double bill. So if you do like Terminal Island, definitely see The Mothers. If you like The Mothers, you'll probably like Terminal Island. That's how that stuff usually works. Let's see. This is an interesting set. I had a lot of fun with it. I think, let's see. The one that I connected with the least was Dungeon of Horror, aka Dungeon of Harrow. I looked it up and it seemed kind of split on the title, whether it was horror or harrow.
Oh, did I say horror?
Sean was. Yes,
oh, no,
so I'll
the
say
front
Harrow.
of it says, the front says
that
horror,
one,
the back says Harrow.
16 millimeter, and it's kind of a throwback to Gothic horror, though it was in 1962, and it was trying to do the kind of lush Gothic feeling on a really tiny budget. And the results, to me, I was pretty bored. I checked out a little bit, which I'm not proud of. I'm a huge fan of that genre. this one didn't quite do it for me. Hang Up. Hang Up is probably one of those ones that kind of skirts the line between exploitation and porn. I guess it's penetration. I think that's the line. There's no penetration in Hang Up. That's definitely full of nudity. Basically, there's a vice cop. Him and his partner, like they dress in drag to bust people, but the whole time they're like, I hate dressing like a woman. This isn't why I became a cop. I'm a man, damn it. Like, they really...
Was there a no homo moment? No
oh,
homo.
my God. Yes. That is, and I almost think that might have been in the actors' contracts. They're like, look, you don't really have to pay us much, but no homo, right? All right. So the cop... he falls for a young prostitute. He heroically rescues her, but things aren't all that they appear. And he has to contend with pimps and hippie love-ins, and he's a terrible asshole, and he deserves everything that happens to him.
Those crazy hippie love-ins. Later in the show, I believe we'll be diving into some hippie love-ins for sure. Some of these other titles that we'll be talking about. So good stuff. The 70s.
Sure thing. Good stuff. Going into, I think I went over Murder on the Emerald Seas a little bit more
Yes.
In the last time I talked about it, but it also has cops in drag trying to bust people. It's a little less no homo, or I guess a more cheerful no homo. But sometimes it felt like an episode of the Batman TV show to me. And a guy in it does dress like Batman.
Nice.
It's a costume party, but it was worth it for me.
I've been known in the past to wear women's clothes, and I was always very much enjoyed wearing a dress. So I always did that, like in high school for skits and stuff. I was always the one to be like, hell yeah, I'll wear a dress. Where's the foundation and the powder as well? We need some lip gloss or lipstick. Let's bring it on. But whatever.
Are there any pictures or footage of this?
I may have. Would have to go through some VHSs, but I did do a lip sync to Lunch Lady Land, and I dressed up in full Lunch Lady garb. That's somewhere. I will try to find it. My parents may have it in a box somewhere. I'll have to have them send it out to me, and I'll digitize it for the world to see.
Hey, Club Scum exclusive right there, man.
Yeah.
Please.
Anyway, that's a little Sean, get to know Sean a little more segment. But
yeah, better know a Sean.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if these are the two most sympathetic men in frock films.
Okay.
But Murder on the Emerald Seas, very dramatic title. I assumed it'd be about pirates.
Yeah.
I'm a simple person, but it's not. It's like goofiness on a cruise ship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the title is very dramatic.
No. It's kind of Benny Hill meets Batman meets...
Okay.
There's even a makeover montage in it.
Oh.
That's an automatic recommendation from me.
Yes. Awesome. All right. So the other two, Flesh and Bullets?
Yes, Flesh and Bullets was my favorite.
Nice.
Yes, for one, it's set in Las Vegas. I live in Las Vegas.
Okay.
I'm always fascinated by Old Vegas because in the city, it seems like every 4 years they implode like 3 casinos and try to remake like half the city. So it's constantly changing, and all the really cool old things like the Liberace Museum get taken down. Just things that make the city interesting, in my opinion. So I kind of like to see it kind of grubby in the 70s and 80s. And this film really felt like a 70s movie, but it was in the 80s. And I only fully believed it was 1985 when I saw a young Robert Zadar appear in a small role. And that's like, fine, I'll buy it, I guess. But good Lord, it feels like a 70s movie. But basically, if you've seen Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train, the whole crisscross, like, my wife's been pissing me off. Oh, well, my ex-wife has been pissing me off. Why don't we take care of it? Okay. Except there's a twist. They immediately have sex with the ex-wives. They fall in love and then kind of try to double-cross each other. So it's a crisscross double-cross.
Ooh, okay. I'm adding this to the top of the list for sure to check out once I start diving into this.
Yes, the acting is atrocious in a really endearing way, but Perfect. It does have, speaking of Batman TV show, Cesar Romero in it.
Oh.
And Yvonne De Carlo from The Munsters.
Oh my God. Perfect.
No, it's a lot of fun. No budget. And it's goofy too. There's a lot of goofiness running throughout the set, which I appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you want like a really awkward, no budget Strangers on a Train that kind of ends with like, can't we just all get along? Flesh and Blood. Another dramatic title that doesn't really fit the film itself.
Sorry, Charlie's in my arms now.
Aww.
He will only relax if I hold him. You good? Okay. All right. And finally, Hang Up. Are you there?
Yeah, that was the Vice Cop.
The Vice
in
Cop.
a dress one.
Hold on. Charlie. Okay, so we've hit them all.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be some editing here, for sure.
I hope so.
Awesome. Excuse me. Oh my God. All right. God, Charlie's like warm. I'm dying right now. He's like a little furnace in my arms. Okay. Very cool. So that's the 5 film. I always want to say 5 years first for some reason. 5 films, 5 years, volume 2, horror and exploitation. It sounds like there's more exploitation maybe than horror in here.
Definitely.
Okay. Good stuff.
Yeah. Straight horror.
Right. Yeah. So no actual straight horror on this. Fantastic. So like I said, I'll be talking with Brandon Upson from Vinegar Syndrome a little more later on in the show, and we do dive into these and the possibility of more of these types of sets in the future. So I wanted to make sure we covered Ice Cream Man on this episode because I was kind of waiting to see if it was going to get some sort of standard release with like one of the packages for the upcoming months. And I'm not sure if it is. I don't think it is just yet. So I wanted to make sure we covered this on the show. It is available in their store. It's not sold out like Liquid Sky is, but Liquid Sky is getting a release in a monthly package in the near future. So we'll be covering Liquid Sky on the podcast within the next couple months. Stephanie, I think you and I are going to talk Liquid Sky on my little side project, Xenopod from the year 5000. So it will be getting covered. If you missed out on it and didn't get the limited edition, you have a lot to look forward to if you buy the monthly packages each month, because it is well worth your time. Excuse me. Good Lord, I'm running out of breath still. But Ice Cream Man got the limited edition treatment with a slipcover. I think they've reprinted it without the slipcover, but it's available in the store. Clint Howard's opus, magnum opus, about a local ice cream man who just wants people to be nice to him and sell them ice cream. Unfortunately, people are mean to him, and he decides to kill people.
Tale as old as time.
This thing, I had never seen it until I watched this Blu-ray. Crazy enough. Yeah, it's another one of those titles that I had always seen the cover, the original cover on the video shelves. And
I think it's one of the most classic video shelf covers because I'm the same way. I would just stare at that and be like, is the guy's head really on a cone in the movie? Is that real? I got good news. It's real.
The one thing that I was like sad about on this release was they have this new artwork, which is fantastic with the hand holding the ice cream cone. The ice cream cone looks like a skull, and I was hoping for the original artwork on the actual cover on like the opposite side or something, but they didn't offer that on the limited edition one. So I'm curious if on the reprint if they do the original cover, which is kind of odd because normally they always try to get access
really
to the
good
original
about this
poster. So I forgot to ask Brandon about this when I talked to him, unfortunately. So it will remain a mystery for now. But
everybody yell at Sean because I want to know.
I know. It slipped my mind. But
because it's petty, I get that. Like, the cover, but
it's petty.
It's so tied into where this movie sits in pulp culture that it almost seemed like deliberate. It's kind of strange.
Yeah, because that's the whole reason why this was even, in my consciousness, all these years without even seeing it. So it's presented beautifully on here on Blu-ray from Vinegar Syndrome. There's some fantastic commentaries by the director, a bunch of other little interviews and everything. There is an interview with Clint Howard, and man, this movie is a lot of fun, and it's I was expecting it to be a little more campy, but it's not. Like it is kind of played straight.
You didn't think it was campy?
I don't know. Like it kind of was, but it was but Clint Howard's playing this thing like not winking at the camera. He's all in on this as this maniac killer. But I guess there is some campiness to it, but I was it wasn't trying to be like a comedy, right? I mean, that's I think was what I was I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Am I remembering this wrong? I'm trying to think like a movie that I could compare this to, that in the same kind of tone. But that period in the mid 90s was really strange for genre movies because I think it was kind of in a transition period. We weren't quite in the 80s slashers anymore, and Scream hadn't come out yet, and there's a lot of direct to video. So I think there's a lot of people struggling to kind of figure out tones, figure out what they want to do. I'm not that they're particularly like the same in tone, but this puts me in the mind of like The Dentist or maybe Man's Best Friend. Right. Yeah.
Where you have these really arresting covers and you're like, I can't even imagine what the tone of this movie is about. What's Dr. Giggles about? What the hell is that about? So that's what causes you to pick it up. And I feel like there's definitely intentional comedy in it, but it's not supposed to be a horror comedy. Right. I don't think. And then because Clint Howard is so sincere, I think a lot of people find comedy within that.
Yeah, I guess that's what I meant. It's not going out of its way to be like this campy horror comedy, but of course, it definitely goes in, slides right in there with. You're right. Like the Dentist is still kind of played straight too, and man, The Dentist is fantastic. If you haven't seen it, watch it. I was thinking also too, maybe like same kind of tone as Intruder, that killer in in a supermarket film. It's like kind of a splatter gore thing, kind of where there is comedy, but I guess it's played. I don't know. I'm struggling, kind of describing what I mean, but. It's a little gore picture for sure, and of course, in this one, they're not afraid to murder some kids. So I guess that's always
I always
a plus.
Respect that. Yeah. Well, the most amazing extra is on here, which is Monster Vision.
Oh,
there's summer school covering Ice Cream Man, and as someone who grew up obsessed with Monster Vision, that was some of my first exposure to horror. I was freaking out that they actually put it on the disc. And that also gives you a clue about the tone. This is definitely the kind of horror movie they'd play on USA Network in the 90s.
There you go.
Just enough stuff to entice people, but it was easy to cut out the stuff that was too gory.
I don't think it reached the level of that poster, though. Was there any moments where it was just where you saw the poster and were like, oh my God, I need to see this, and then you watch the movie and did it reach those heights at all? I know there's the head in the ice cream cone.
Yeah, a little bit, because I think I've been ripped off by movie covers enough that literally had nothing, that I actually respect what Ice Cream Man did have. Mm-hmm. Like, there's that part where he's like scooping like that filthy ice cream with the body parts in it, and he's like he's working his tongue around the eyeball in the ice cream cone.
Yes.
Like, that's delivering.
Yeah.
So yeah, honestly, if you're really trying to turn this movie into a real movie with a plot, yeah, I think they did pretty well.
I think so. I mean, anyone trying to make ice cream out of the people he kills, I mean, has to be respected. Now, they did try to do a Kickstarter campaign in 2014 to try to do a sequel.
I remember that.
Called Sunday Bloody Sunday, and I don't think they were trying to reach like $300,000, and they only made like $4,000, which sucks. I feel like with this film kind of being out on Blu-ray now, maybe they would have a chance at doing this. I don't know if they've fully abandoned that.
I was surprised it was so low. I do run in circles where this is like a one people love, though. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if beyond that circles if this film is known at all, but I don't know. I think it'd almost be worth trying again. Like, because we have more streaming opportunities now, and now we have this really nice Blu-ray. Like, mm-hmm. I don't know, guys.
I think so. I think the time out again. I think the time is right. But yeah, I don't even know if this did this have a DVD release? This was one that I couldn't find like a decent release of it for the longest time, and that's why I never bought it. Like, I didn't even buy it on DVD, which I think says something, because this is one that was always been on my mind to buy, but I never did. So yeah, maybe it was just an ill-timed Kickstarter. I'll drop Clinton Howard a line, and I'll ask him. Yeah,
he seems like the sweetest guy, and his interview with Joe Bob Briggs in that extra on here, it has a lot of really fun behind the scenes information. He knew exactly the kind of film he made, and he had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. I love Clinton Howard. He's fantastic. He's always really, really fun. When I initially planned on talking about Ice Cream Man, it was not sold out on vinegarsyndrome.com or anywhere else. A few days have passed, and now it's sold out. So the word that I'm getting is that they are going to be reprinting this without the slipcover. So we'll keep you guys in the loop on that. And I'm not sure now. I mean, now that it's sold out, it might get added to a monthly package, or it might just appear on their site. So what I'll do is I'll look into this, and I'll make sure all the information about all the stuff is in the show notes and everything like that. So funny how things happen like that. So
we apologize for taunting you. We didn't know.
I know for sure it's getting reprinted. So do not go to eBay and pay $60 for this damn thing.
Unless it's me. I'm taking offers.
Right. Yeah. So it's not gone forever. It is. I did get confirmation that it is going to be reprinted, just like Liquid Sky. So, all right. Well, I think that's going to do it for your segment, Stephanie. Thank you so much for joining us, and in a couple of weeks we'll all be hopefully together. I'm working on that. None of this piecemeal bullshit. We'll all be together.
I'm sorry.
One big happy family.
And how about you watch some of these Blu-ray sets you got, Fancy Pants?
Okay, I promise. I'll report back. All right. We will talk to you next week.
Goodbye.
Josh Obershaw now joins us for the Blu-ray news. Josh, what's up, man?
What up? How's it going?
It's going good. We are pummeling through a Vinegar Syndrome episode. And I know that these past few weeks seem to have been a bit slow on the announcement front, but there's a little bit to dive into. So what do you got?
Well, speaking of Vinegar Syndrome, we just got some late word right now about. We're just going to give you a little sneak peek of what they got for April. A report is coming in that they are going to be releasing the 1989 crime thriller Blue Vengeance for April. No other details other than that, except, there's a little sneak peek for you about what's coming soon later in the spring.
Very cool.
Next up from Kino Lorber, they've just announced that they're going to be releasing a Blu-ray DVD of the movie Seven. Now, this is not the classic, super awesome David Fincher movie. This is from 1979. Sean, tell us a little bit more about this movie called Seven, which is not the David Fincher movie.
Seven is a 1979 Andy Sedaris film. And I have no idea what the movie's about, but the cover is incredible. And, of course, Andy Sedaris, director of Hard Ticket to Hawaii. Now, I really hope this means that we're going to get some more Andy Sedaris on Blu-ray, because Hard Ticket to Hawaii on Blu-ray would be worth celebrating. But this is a start. I haven't seen this one, and it looks fantastic. I guess here we go. I'm going to read the what it's about. Okay.
Okay.
A cartel of 7 crime bosses unionize and plan to take over the state of Hawaii. Government intelligence agent Drew Savano is hired to handle the situation however he sees fit. Drew enlists 7 old friends to help, creating Savano's 7: the playmate, the black belt, the dragster, the cowboy, the comic, the professor, and the Indian.
Sold.
Yeah. Totally pumped about this. If you're a fan of Malibu Express or Hard Ticket to Hawaii, definitely, this will be something that you will probably be looking forward to. I'm really excited about that. I mean, Andy Sedaris is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've seen Hard Ticket to Hawaii, and I just love this so much. So I'm very curious to find more movies from this guy. I saw the poster for this, and I thought is this a porno? But
yeah, and Andy Sedaris, I mean, he kind of peaked with Hard Ticket to Hawaii. That's probably his best one. But if you have the Guns and G-Strings DVD set or whatever, that's only like $7, and this should be in everyone's collection. But yeah, I mean, if this opens the way to Andy Sedaris Blu-rays, this will be worth it. So I'm excited to check it out.
Cool. Well, the only other label that I've got news for you is going to be Arrow. Now, it is the first weekend of the new month, but I didn't hear anything regarding any reissues, but they did announce their titles for May. So starting with the UK, they're going to be putting out a Blu-ray of Dark Blue, which is with Kurt Russell. That one's coming out on May 7th. And they are also going to be releasing Rawhead Rex for the UK crowd on May 14th. Now, for the UK and the US, they're going to be releasing the Bloodthirsty trilogy box set, which includes The Vampire Doll, Lake of Dracula, and Evil of Dracula. That one is coming out on the 14th in the UK and the 15th here. They're also releasing Death Smiles on a Murderer. That is coming out on the 21st in the UK and the 22nd here. But probably the biggest news of the month as far as new titles, Wes Craven's The Last House on the Left.
Awesome. So I'm assuming this is going to get the treatment that The Hills Have Eyes got.
Yes, definitely. Let's see what we have here. We've got disc 1, the uncut version, archival commentaries with Craven and Sean S. Cunningham, a whole bunch of interviews, of course, ones with David Hess. It's Only a Movie, The Making of The Last House on the Left, which is an archival documentary. But yeah, it just looks pretty spectacular. I mean, man, I'm going to have to, I've only seen this movie once, and yeah, when was this? About 12 years ago. I haven't watched it since.
It's not one that really begs for a revisit. It's a pretty hard watch, I think. I mean, the remake is almost an easier rewatch I think, because they kind of toned down that rape scene, and it's definitely, they lean heavy on the revenge aspect of it. But yeah, I'm interested in revisiting it. And it's one that I have not revisited for a very long time. So I think I have the Blu-ray of it, the last Blu-ray, but if they're giving it the treatment that they gave The Hills Have Eyes, then I think this is definitely going to be like the final purchase, and that would make it worth owning. But it's a tough movie, one that I haven't really wanted to revisit.
Yeah, well, this too has the Krugen Company and R-rated cuts plural.
Interesting.
So, yeah, so that alone is definitely going to be worth the price of picking this one out for sure. This is coming out in the UK on May 28th, and it's going to be here in the US on the 29th, but you can already pre-order it via Amazon. I know Diabolic DVD has it, so if you want it, go get it right now.
Yep, Grindhouse Video as well will have this for pre-order. So, yeah.
Sweet.
Yep, find it where you can get this thing pre-ordered, and I'm excited to add this to my collection, and it'll be the final time I probably purchase this film.
It'll be the only time that I'll purchase this movie. But it as brutal and as horrific as that movie is, I mean, it's definitely important. And
yeah,
I still miss Wes Craven.
Yeah, it's an important piece of horror history for sure. And
yes,
it's one of those, that definitely warrants this type of treatment. So awesome.
Cool. That's all I got this time, John.
All right, man.
Maybe in a couple of weeks we'll get some news about what's coming out during the summertime. I know Shout Factory has their big summer Scream sale with Scream Factory.
All right, Josh. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye, guys.
Brandon Upson joins us right now for a little Vinegar Syndrome update. What's up, man?
How's it going, everyone?
I want to start doing these more as we move along this year with our Vinegar Syndrome episodes. I feel like sometimes we just kind of talk about the movies, but I feel like we've missed some opportunities to really kind of talk to you guys and see, get some deeper insight to some of the things you guys are working on. So thanks for taking the time and chatting with me.
Yeah, no problem.
So on this particular show, what we are discussing is Fugitive Girls, Prey, the two Penitentiary films, and Lucifer's Women. And I'm pretty excited to jump into those. BJ and I, a little bit later, will be discussing some of the Ponos. So she'll have a little backroom update on those. But these ones were a fun bunch to kind of go through, and especially Prey, because I'd never really heard of it. Well, Lucifer's Women too. So I was wondering, were these part of some sort of package deal? Were these films that you guys had in your archive in particular, or what was these two in particular, Lucifer's Women and Prey? How did you guys end up getting, access to these ones?
No, those were both licensing.
Okay.
We licensed from a great guy named Sam Sherman for Lucifer's Women, and also, I guess, Dr. Dracula, which is the alternate cut. But for what was it? Yeah, Prey, and we're doing a few others of his films. It was through Euro London for Norman J. Warren, the director. So, but yeah, no, that's how we got the licensing for those.
Well, these were two fun surprises for me. I had heard of Dr. Dracula, but had never seen it, and just watched. And my first experience with that film was this cut of Lucifer's Women, which was a lot more than I bargained for, I think, but it was a lot of fun to watch. So I'm glad people can finally discover this thing, in its full glory, because I think this is one that had been relegated to just like VHS before. I know that it or just that cut.
Lucifer's Women, that's the original cut, and
right.
Aside from theatrical premiering, it never played anywhere else, and it was heavily re-edited into Dr. Dracula by Al Adamson and Sam Sherman. They wanted to, it was pretty common to re-edit these films to try and get more money, get more play in the theaters. Because Lucifer's Women, I really like it, but it is a bit more cerebral, I guess, and a little bit more on the soft core stuff necessarily than the horror aspect. But I still love it. It's really good to have for a lot of people. They thought Lucifer's Women, that particular cut, was lost, and it was just great to find it. But no, it came out really good. I feel.
Yeah, this is definitely one that I would highly recommend for people to check out. So we'll be diving into these films a little bit later in the show. I did have a question for you guys. You probably can't announce it or anything, but is there the possibility of Penitentiary III seeing the light of day?
Well, there's always the possibility, but with Penitentiary III, it's a little different because it's not owned by Xenon Films. It's the other Jama Fanaka films are owned by Xenon, and it was pretty easy to license. We did, the Dolomite films through them. We've done. We're actually upcoming. We have Welcome Home, Brother Charles, and MMA as well. But unfortunately, Penitentiary 3, I believe, it's like a big studio one. Oddly enough, so that's a little bit more difficult. It's a little bit harder to try and get a hold of. That's not to say it won't happen, but it's not really in the pipeline right now.
Okay,
but it may happen in the future. Who knows?
All right. So moving along, I wanted to. I know that you guys have been posting about. You announced Star Time, and we had in a crazy cross of fate. We had talked about the put in our VHS segment a couple weeks back, or I guess a few weeks back now, and so you guys have been. I'm hearing an echo. I apologize, everybody. We had to try to make this recording work. So if there's an echo, there's an echo. God, it's just so weird. It just appeared. Oh well.
Do I have the echo on mine? I can't hear it.
No, I'm hearing it in my headphones, but yeah, it is what it is. But for me, when you guys announced that, I was very excited to actually be able to see this thing, in a cleaned up print, because I watched the VHS version and it was just god awful. So, and I know this is a lesser known title. What can people expect from this film who hadn't really heard about it? What are you guys doing to?
Well, the first big thing, we restored it from the camera negative, the original director's cut, which is, significantly, I guess, brighter. You could actually see what's going on and understand it a bit more. We had a kind of restored sound with it as well. We got a new interview. We got new audio commentary with the film's director. And then we also got a video interview with the cinematographer. And what's really cool about the cinematographer, he actually started off on, I'm sure people have to know this listening to this Bruce Campbell, Sam Raimi film called The Intruder.
Oh, okay.
I think that was his first experience shooting in the U.S. too. He's from Spain, and he's kind of done all these crazy kind of, he did a few other horror films and everything too. He's moved on to the greener Hollywood pastures in television, and has been doing that for a long time. But he started off kind of with that era, and oddly enough, the additional cinematography in the film, there's a couple parts which were additional, and one of them was Janusz Kaminski, who has been Steven Spielberg's longtime cinematographer for, God, I think since Schindler's List even.
Wow.
So, yeah, and it's just crazy that they all kind of got started around this little film. And
yeah,
I really like it. It's really surreal. I really like how it goes in terms of like murder, but also like celebrity and you know, kind of being that little television addiction and what you want to, you know, you have to keep it, you know, controlled, I guess is the term.
Well,
but
that was the biggest
but
surprise.
yeah, no, it's a great film. It's just it was very strange. But I love it.
Yeah, no, I love that is this social commentary on it, and it's almost before its time. You know, like there's a little bit of reality television in there. It's just. Yeah, I'm really excited for people to discover this one. And like I said, I just had this list of these VHS flicks that Brad kind of worked out and said, hey, what about these? And this was in there. And I'm really happy to see that this is getting released from you guys, especially because I know it's going to look fantastic. So, yeah, I'm excited. I mean, some of the screens, you guys have posted some screenshots here. Are they from the release
they're from
itself?
The restoration.
Yeah, they look great, man. These look way better than how I viewed them for sure. Awesome. So I definitely recommend people check that one out for sure. We'll be discussing. Well, we'll be discussing this, I guess, a little bit more, and as a group, we'll discuss the restoration, what we think about it, and everything. But yeah, if you're listening to this and you're on the fence about buying this, like, I'm not just saying this just because I'm talking to Brandon. Like, you need to get your hands on this thing. You definitely will enjoy the hell out of it. So what else we got going on here? Let's see here. Okay.
I know you mentioned Fugitive Girls, and
yes,
that's been a really kind of great film for us. And what was cool seeing that is just the fact that Ed Wood is in it.
Yes.
Not only twice, he's in it 3 times, but the third time I think it's literally just his hand for a little bit or something like that, or his leg. And but just seeing Ed Wood in a film where he's, you know, the strange old codger, you know, on the airplane hangar. Then all of a sudden later on, and this he's not credited for, but it's totally him. He plays the straight-laced sheriff at the end.
Yeah.
But just knowing that that's Ed Wood, and then you like hear the stories behind the scenes about it, it's just crazy. So it's just one of those great, you know, films, and just I don't know, like seeing Fugitive Girls, seeing the other AC Stevens, Ed Wood collaborations, which I think we're going to do a couple more as well. I'm not sure on the titles, but I think we are working on a couple others. But I think Fugitive Girls, in a lot of ways, is the like one of the best, just because of the chaos in it. And you have Renee Bond and as like this racist Southern woman, so it's pretty great.
Yeah, this was a fun batch to dive into, and Fugitive Girls, aka 5 Loose Women, was a lot of fun. And I don't know what it is about. I mean, I know that there was a lot of this exploitation stuff in the 70s and everything. I for some reason, I don't know why, but I'm always shocked with how far some of these films go in the terms of like the sexual content, because I'm just, you know, I wasn't watching movies around then. Of course, I wasn't even born yet, probably when this came out. But I don't know how mainstream these films were, like if they're playing at drive-ins or what. But it's always shocking to kind of to see a film like this. When I just figured it would be like a women in prison type flick, but it goes farther than some of the women in prison films that I've seen before on certain aspects of it. So it was pretty fun to check out. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And with going with that too, it is a bit more, I guess, somehow sleazier than your average women in prison flick too.
but not necessarily from the men's point. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the men being necessarily sleazy in it, which was kind of because normally you have like there's always one, you know, rapey prison guard or something like that in these films, and in this case it was kind of a little bit different from what I've seen before. So you know, a lot of fun to be surprised when you're watching these. Do you have anything? So you have this is Sexploitation Signature Series number 4. Is that something you guys plan on moving forward with? Do you have in this next batch? Did you have anything with that little title on the side?
I'm trying to think. So far, no. The next one, let's see. I gotta look it up real quick here. But
I'll be editing a little bit, so
no, yeah. The next one is actually Triple X. It's Babyface 2, which there are a lot of fans for Babyface 1, so I'm sure a lot of people like this too. It's a little bit more, I guess, more mainstream even for Dorenzi. So, but it's a really great one. That's just going to be a normal Blu-ray line. For the next ones, though, it was, aside from Star Time and Welcome Home, Brother Charles MMA, another really interesting one is Confessions of a Teenage Peanut Butter Freak, which it's kind of what you imagine it to be in your head, and but it's a bit more, I guess, more taken seriously too, and the way they make the storyline. I don't want to spoil it too much, but it's just like how they involve, like, this person basically uses peanut butter as almost like a worry stone, or as something like when he gets anxiety when he's about to have sex and stuff. He just starts eating peanut butter randomly, and it gets weird. Of course, there's naughty stuff with the peanut butter too, but that's another story. So, but it's honestly a great film. I recommend, and it has really good kind of just groovy, the old X-rated '70s groovy rock music throughout the whole film. So, but for that month, Star Time is probably my favorite out of that month. Although Welcome Home, Brother Charles, and MMA are great on their own as well. Yeah. So, but as far as like this exploitation line, we're definitely going to continue. I'm not sure what the next one is though. Okay. What's the reaction been like so far? Because I know you guys are pretty involved with the fan group online and everything, and on Facebook. What's been the responses from Star Time so far? Have you kind of put that out there? Do people seem kind of wary of it, unsure, or are people looking forward to it? I'd say they're looking forward to it, but also that it's a more obscure title too that hasn't seen a DVD release ever. It was really only available on VHS, but I think it'll get a really good audience too, and the people who do know it seem to love it. So I think it's going to go well. Awesome. And now I want to talk to you a little bit about kind of your limited edition stock for Ice Cream Man. Is that still available? We haven't talked about it on the show yet. I've been kind of holding off a little bit, but do you guys have enough of those? I mean, it's the slipcase that's still available. Yeah, and then but yeah, there's a few left. Okay. We are re-releasing Liquid Sky. That's coming out in April as well, so you'll be able to get that as well. And then otherwise, the stocks should be accurate. Are you going to be doing re-releasing Ice Cream Man as a part of a package in the future, or is that are you going to keep that the way it is now? Because I know that the way it is now. I think, and then once it's ready, it'll be just standard edition, I guess. So that the standard edition might happen later on down the line once the stock runs out of the slipcase ones. Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Yeah, I've been trying to hold off. I'm been trying to wait and talk about those, and I want to make sure everyone can. If we talk about a flick, I want to make sure that they can go out and grab it. So yeah, Liquid Sky in April. So we'll cover that in April. I know that Stephanie Crawford and I are going to be talking about Liquid Sky on my little side project podcast, Xenopod, from the year 5000. Her and I are probably going to be discussing that. So you'll get a full in-depth discussion with her and I, but we'll be covering it along with the April and I guess the March and April packages will combine, and we'll talk about all those. So it's fantastic, man. That's a great little film. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of a labor of love for us. Oh man, it's so good getting it all together. It was nuts, but I'm glad the response has been fantastic for it, and just the appreciation of the film, like what Slava, the director, went through to make that thing back in the 80s, and kind of like almost the premonitions of the film with regarding AIDS and just all this stuff evolved in the film as well. So But yeah, it came out really awesome.
Nice. And then I wanted to bring up your 5 films in 5 years, volumes 1 and 2. That was awesome that you guys did that. And I know that Steph and I will be talking about the Exploitation one for sure. But what prompted you guys to do that? Have you always thought, maybe this would be a great idea, or did you have enough people finally asking for these films? Because most of these were kind of limited edition runs you had done previous years within the past 5 years, right?
Well, all of them were really just DVD only at first. Not necessarily limited edition. Murder on the Emerald Seas on the Exploitation one definitely was, but a few of the other, pretty much all the others were just regular DVDs. You could find them anywhere. But this is kind of we just wanted to make an upgrade for people who really wanted these films as well on Blu-ray and get the high def versions of them as well. So, it was just an idea we had cooking, and then it went over really well. So I think we are going to do, volumes 3 and 4 pretty soon too. So who knows? Awesome. But I think the plan is now to upgrade kind of the older DVDs, just in collections like this, and kind of go from there.
Right. Yeah, that's a great idea. It makes them accessible.
It depends what people want too, though. So if we get a lot of requests for a certain title, we'll go for that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. All right. And moving along, I wanted to ask you how the archive is going, because you guys have your brick and mortar store there in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And I'm so jealous that that's there. Like, there's all the brick and mortar stores around me are just drying up, gone. Yeah. Even the Best Buy section of movies is awful. Target's all my shopping now for movies is completely online. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you how that's going there, because it's so much more than just a store. It creates more of a community,
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We wanted to kind of create that, and people have asked, or locally too, hey, can we pick up your releases at Vinegar Syndrome? And Vinegar Syndrome itself is not really built for that. It's mostly online, and then we have our film archive, and it's not really meant for that. But now we have a brick and mortar store at our facility, and what's great about that is people can pick up their orders there, but also browse, Arrow Video, Synapse, Severin, you name it. They're all there. We kind of pride ourselves because we do carry stuff that even in other stores you wouldn't find, like more obscure stuff like Massacre Video and a lot of crazy VHS and records, and it's kind of like it's kind of, I guess you'd call it like a little horror and cult geek paradise. I hope that's what people would want, but it's been going really good so far. In fact, we've been talking about expanding the space and adding more. We finished up the second floor, and we had a couple screenings go for a local radio station too, and the screenings went really well. So now the second floor is kind of our screening room. We're going to be doing a few more. We'll probably premiere some Vinegar Syndrome restorations, and but no, it's been going fantastic. We're still only open Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays. We're hoping to expand the hours pretty soon. I'm trying to think, but yeah, we got a lot of just great stuff in. We got the Dawn of the Dead, the Waxworks Records re-release. We got stuff like from Agfa's Soul Tangler DVD, which is, you want obscure, that's pretty crazy and obscure right there. But we just got a lot of great stuff, and of course we have everyone could come in and purchase all the Vinegar Syndrome titles as well. So, but it was a lot of work to get it started, but now that it's going, it's not letting up. So
awesome. That's really encouraging to hear.
Yeah, I know.
To know that,
and I've had people call from like California and elsewhere, like they go on the East Coast to New York, then if you really want, it's only an hour and a half train ride, and we're 3 blocks from the main train station from Grand Central to Bridgeport, and we're 3 blocks from the Bridgeport train station, so it works out for people traveling too.
Nice, very nice. Yeah, Grindhouse Video, of course, we talk about a lot on the show. Like that's
they're great. Yeah, I still keep meaning one day I'll get down to Tampa and actually go to the store.
Awesome.
So.
Yeah, but it's just so weird that there's nothing at all like that in my area, like at all. Like there's, I'm in Southern California, so up near Riverside. There's a place called Mad Platter, which I'm never up that way, but they were more like, just used stuff and vinyl and stuff, but never like anything like cult, film or anything like that at all. It was, by the time I'd combed through all the cult stuff, it was all just mainstream stuff. So I stopped going because there's like nothing left, anything that I was interested in.
I mean, well, you come to the East Coast, you get kind of spoiled too, because it's unfortunate, like FYE and Best Buy's scaling back and FYEs are closing and all the mainstream stuff is, but there's actually a fair amount on further past Connecticut. If you're in the Boston area or going or points north, you have Newberry Comics, which is pretty good. But then my favorite is you have Bull Moose, and Bull Moose is like the archive times 10, but franchised for like 6 different stores. So the closest one is in New Hampshire, but I made the trip up there and it is worth it. So
nice.
But yeah, people seem to come to the archive saying it's worth it, and there's nothing like that. Even in like New York City, for a while you had Kim's in New York, but then that closed, and now it's kind of just us as far as the cult movies are concerned. So.
Well, I'm glad you guys are picking up the torch there. Well, we're going to wrap up here soon, but I did want to mention everyone who hasn't. I know I tweeted out the link a while ago about you guys' lab work, and I think it was you and I, and maybe James talked about the lab work that you guys had done. So on your website, if you go to vinegarsyndrome.com and then click on, I'm getting messages on my Facebook.
That's okay.
But it's a fun to go through and see all the lab work you guys have done for other labels. And so if I would always recommend people to check that out to see some of them. These are probably all movies all of you have in your collections already. And I think you and I talked about it a little bit, right? Do you remember?
Yeah. I know that the newest one that I think we just added is on from Arrow Video, Scalpel, which came out really nice. And I think we added on Basket Case. We didn't do the restoration for Basket Case, but what we did do was the scan for his short film Slash of the Knife, which if you can anyone can pick up the Basket Case Blu-ray. The Slash of the Knife short is really awesome and kind of showed you, what Frank Henenlotter was all about in his student film days. So it was really cool to help with that.
Well, damn it, man, you're going to make me rebuy Basket Case. I have a UK trilogy, the Basket Case trilogy steelbook or whatever. And
yeah, everyone had that.
But I need to buy the Arrow version to see, to see that.
Yeah.
All right, Brandon. Well, thanks, man, for chatting with me about this stuff. We'll try to make this a regular thing. Every couple months, we'll have you and possibly James, if he's not slaving away, on and just kind of chat things up with what you guys have been doing. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Right now, Rob Hunter joins me on the Screamcast. Brad Henderson may or may not show up in this conversation. We'll see what happens. Rob, welcome to the Screamcast.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. I've got my pants half off in expectation that Brad may or may not show up.
Awesome. Yep, he's a tease, that Brad.
That's one way to describe him.
This section of the show, we are going to be going through the last couple months of Vinegar Syndrome releases without the porn. BJ will be joining us a little bit later to get raw and dirty. So look forward to that in about an hour, everybody. So if you want to skip an hour and hear the dirty stuff, that's going to happen. But Rob, we are going to be talking about Penitentiary 1 and 2. We're going to be talking about Fugitive Girls, and then Prey, and then Lucifer's Women. Are you ready to rock and roll?
I'm always ready to rock and roll. That's exactly the way I was born.
exactly. And that's why I contacted you when Brad was not sure if he can make it or not. So I was like, I need to have a good old standby, and that's always you.
Oddly, it won't be the first time that I've substituted and studied for Brad. Usually it's at parties and important events with important people,
right?
Where he needs to appear like as a professional. But
right.
This will probably also work.
Fantastic. And you've been you've poured yourself out before with Brian Sauer on the Screaming Pods Network. So if you're listening to the Screaming shows on the Screaming Pods Network, you have showed up in other formats as well.
I have. This is actually my first time back with you guys since you became this amalgamated amorphous blob of podcasts.
Yeah. So welcome back. I did appreciate your thoughts on Bat Pussy during that episode with Brian on Just the Discs during the what's that line called? It starts with an A. I always pronounce it wrong.
The AGFA?
Yeah, AGFA. AGFA.
Mm-hmm. I still stand behind Bat Pussy being one of the finest finds in recent history.
It sounds like a blast. And I was surprised that they released that. I was like, man, this is something that would be perfect for Vinegar Syndrome when I was hearing about it. But the fact that they're willing to nut up or shut up and bring in Bat Pussy on that label was pretty fantastic.
I think these two labels are probably the most similar of all labels, because they both are pulling movies out of obscurity, oftentimes from basically one single reel is like all that's left of it or whatever it might be, or one single copy of the film, and then doing just bang up jobs cleaning it up and then also adding in plenty of extras. So I think both of them are doing the Lord's work.
Awesome. Awesome. So check out AGFA. We're here to talk about Vinegar Syndrome and their luscious releases. First, let's jump into Jama Fanaka's Penitentiary.
You call the lieutenant, and you tell him if he wants rumble, we'll give him rumble.
Now, I'm hoping I pronounced his name right.
It sounded good to me.
I apologize, anyone out there who would be who knows the correct way to pronounce that. But Jama Fanaka, this was his entry into kind of like the blaxploitation. This was 1979. Kind of this one, unlike the other penitentiaries, this started out more of a drama, some exploitation, kind of sort of in and around there as the movie kind of goes on. But this stars Leon Isaac Kennedy. He is Martell Too Sweet Gordon, and he is wrongfully imprisoned when he's homeless. I guess you can say he's wandering in the desert, and he's picked up by a woman in a van called the Shaggin' Wagon, and her name's Linda. She picks him up, and turns out she's a prostitute, but she may or may not give him some freebies, and they end up at a diner. And there's two guys that I think were the men that she was going to meet that were going to pay her for her services.
Customers.
Yes, very disgruntled, kind of racist, and shit goes down. And I believe, does one of them die? Yeah, one of them. One of them dies during the confrontation, and he's sent to jail. And then our movie kind of goes from there. Becomes kind of a prison movie, a little bit of boxing, but the boxing almost kind of comes secondary towards the end.
Yeah, and the action in the movie is definitely. I feel like the franchise grows into the action eventually, but for this first movie, it's definitely more of a to your point, the drama and a little bit of a commentary on on prison conditions and on this world, and then it has these these exploitative elements thrown into it, whether it be like getting into the violence of it, or then also like the non sequitur sex scene during that one boxing fight, where it just kind of like is all meshed together to again kind of like create this world. But the action part of it really is kind of like a secondary backdrop to the story of this guy's journey, and then the world that's in this prison, because it really is like a world building going on in this prison here. Yeah, definitely. And what I really liked about this movie kind of off the bat is, there's the exploitation aspect there, but like the fights and the confrontations that happen in the movie kind of, they feel real, as in like they're messy. There's a scene where he's fighting his basically cellmate, and it's ugly. Like, it's not like, because we're used to these choreographed fight scenes, right, in action flicks, but it's just, there's a lot of just holding each other, trying to get each other down, trying to maybe gouge eyes out and things like that. But it's just, and it goes on almost like a little too long. But cause that one scene especially reminded me of the scene in They Live, where that fight scene just keeps on going and going. But this is closed quarters in a cell, and it's very, to me, it feels very real. Like, what'd you feel about kind of? That's actually exactly when I wrote them up last month. That's actually what I was commenting on as well. That the action here is not in the slightest bit stylized or. I'm sure it's choreographed. It doesn't feel kind of like choreographed to give viewers kind of like a an cool moment, or like kind of like it's not like exciting in that sense, or just cool to watch. It is more about it feels like just scrapping. It feels like just like a brawl, which is it's fitting. It's what it should be. But that's part of also why the action feels kind of secondary here, because it's not a movie like you have something like the Scott Adkins movies, those Undisputed movies. Right. Those movies, it's him fighting in prisons, but the centerpiece of those movies is these just kick-ass, ridiculously great fight scenes. Mm-hmm. The rest of it, not so much. It's just generic action movie plot, whatever. But those fight scenes are where all the energy goes. Here, it's like they reached the point where it's time to fight, and they just said, okay, just go at it, kind of thing. And it works because this is what these characters would be essentially doing. They're not going to be these like highly trained martial artists, and so this makes more sense. And so it is ugly, and more human, and more just kind of like down in the dirt, kind of just fighting. And that's, again, it's fitting, and it works for these characters. Yeah. Now, this was released by Xenon Entertainment. The first two sequels released by Xenon Entertainment. So there's 3 Penitentiary sequels or movies, and the third one, I was talking to Brandon Upson in the segment before this, and the third one, because I asked him, I'm like, are we going to be able to see a Blu-ray of Penitentiary 3? But it was released by Canon Group, so we don't. They don't know. He was very obscure on if this would see a Blu-ray release from them, but it would be basically somebody who owns the rights, I believe, to Canon Films, possibly. But these, as they go along, they kind of get more and more, kind of more generic actioners, but kind of, I believe, they kind of progress slowly. But yeah, the actor. Well, no, the character that his cellmate is called, his name's Half Dead, and he's this tall like lanky guy, and like I just loved watching the tussles with those two, because it's just so like it just feels so like gross and sweaty and grimy. Well, like I said, it feels like it's. Obviously these are low budget. This is a low budget movie, so there's not like you don't have a lot to go for it, and so most of what you're getting and most of what you're feeling off screen is coming from these characters and just this world they've created in this prison. It feels both disturbing because of what's going on and what's allowed, and it feels like it's obviously clearly understandably dangerous place to be, but then also you have these individual characters who stand out with these nicknames, with their behaviors, with their dialogue, and so that, I think that is where, for me anyways, that's where the movie succeeds best. Less so as as an action movie, that's where it's kind of pitched as like a prison action movie, and more so as a character piece, looking at the types of people that are in there and what they're kind of forced to go through. Yeah.
Yeah, and all this, like you said, does seem secondary. The director, Jama Fanaka, he was born Walter Gordon, and he changed his name to Jama Fanaka, and he became a director, kind of a leading director. There's a thing called the L.A. Rebellion Film Movement, and this was it was also called the Los Angeles School of Black Filmmakers, and also the UCLA Rebellion. And so they all were, creating movies between, I believe, like the late 60s and into the late 80s. And these would kind of definitely fall into those. Were you familiar at all with his background in this?
I wasn't. These movies. I had seen this first movie, this first Penitentiary, ages ago, but I had never seen the second or third or anything else that he had done. So I was aware of his name because of just having seen this first movie a while ago, but I had no knowledge of his past experiences.
Yeah. No. Apparently, there's a documentary called "Spirits of Rebellion: Black Cinema at UCLA" that I want to track down, and it features information about this movement. But
the Kennedy interview that's on this disc is a good one. I mean, he talks about his career. This is the lead actor. He talks about his career and all that, but he gets into working with the director on these films, and as far as like just the relationship they had, but also I believe there's a little bit of reflection on that past kind of stuff that you're talking about too.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And there is an archival, because he's not with us any longer. He passed away in 2012. They do have a commentary with him on this first one, which is really great to have, to kind of hear his commentary track. And I believe also on Penitentiary II, there is a commentary with him as well. So
slow down there, Sean. You're getting ahead of yourself.
I know. Did you get a chance to listen to the commentary at all?
I did not yet.
It's tough for me to dive into all the extras with my schedule.
It's fair. You're forgiven.
Yeah, overall, Penitentiary, man, a really fun film to discover, because I hadn't really heard of these films at all, and like I said, it kind of went against my expectations of it being like a Rocky in prison type flick, and I think it was,
it's definitely even back when I saw it ages ago off of a Blockbuster video store shelf, it was kind of marketed even then, obviously, as this action movie in prison. And then when you watch it, you realize that it's definitely the back seat of the movie. The rest of it is again with these characters and with these just interactions, and it feels like it's crazy and ludicrous, but also feels like this could be like legit. It's just a weird mix of a believable unfortunate circumstance.
Yeah, definitely. So we can move into talking about Penitentiary II. And was there anything else you wanted to mention about Penitentiary as we move into Penitentiary II?
Not specifically. When we get onto 2, though, I've never seen 3, and so your comment about canon owning, I'm hoping that they are able to work out some kind of licensing thing. Which that whole world always confuses me. Why certain rights holders wouldn't license it? I mean, why not get it out there and make a few bucks off of it? But whatever. Right. So hopefully they get around to doing that, so I can actually follow that through as well. Yeah, I'm excited to see 3 as well. I've only heard about it, so. But yeah, Penitentiary II, we're moving into the 80s here, 1982, and our main actor is back again. I hope he doesn't find more trouble. Oh man, I don't know. He may or may not find more trouble.
I'm going to be champion of the world. Bobbers, mothers, fathers, little kids, you have captured the imagination of America. We love! Hard fast punches, and the sweet one is now on the attack, and Jesse is down, ladies and gentlemen. Too Sweet connected with a vicious right up and sent Jesse the Bull Amos to the tent.
Leon Isaac Kennedy back as Martell Too Sweet Gordon. I love the name, by the way. So this we come back into this world. He's out of jail. He's earned his parole, but the way he earned his parole, I guess, was by winning. In the first penitentiary, did he earn his parole through that fight, or we?
I don't know if it should have earned the parole, but he got out earlier because of climbing up and then winning the contest. Yeah,
it's explained in this crazy long, like Star Wars type scroll at the beginning.
That was like literally my favorite part of this movie was that opening crawl that just is like, Star Wars. Yeah, we've seen it. Here's ours. Boom. Just goes
because it is insane. I wasn't expecting that at all. And when that started, I was like, all right, well here we go. That's just
I think
it's a lot of information.
It is a ton of information, and it's also because of the way it's presented as the Star Wars crawl, where it's not even like trying to hide that it's a Star Wars crawl.
Yeah.
I think that also sets the tone, because this is a far, even though there's probably the darkest moment of the two movies is in this one here. I think that the film as a whole is far lighter than the first movie. For my tastes, it's to its detriment. But I think that the opening Star Wars crawl, which I enjoy, is the tease that this is going to be kind of like a goofier movie.
Yeah. So he's on parole. Of course, like most of these movies, he wants to live a peaceful life. He wants to start
first mistake.
Exactly. You should never expect a peaceful life if you're just coming out of prison, especially if you're involved in a prison boxing tournament. So he has no interest in boxing, of course, and he wants to live with his sister and her husband. He wants to start over. However,
the husband, by the way, played by Glenn Turman, who is just fantastic. I love this guy. I love whenever he shows up in a movie. Yeah. He's so good.
Yeah. Unfortunately, his nemesis, Half Dead, is out of jail. Not let out. I believe he escaped.
He does.
And he's a badass motherfucker. Played this time by Ernie Hudson.
Yep. Who does a great job, because especially if you, for today's audiences, especially who know him as like, from Ghostbusters, or even from like, Grace and Frankie or whatever, where he's just like, in most of his roles where he's kind of like just a fun, casual guy, whatever. He's a very, very bad man in this movie.
Very bad man. And what kind of kicks things off is probably what you were saying, the darkest moment of this film, when Too Sweet is in his room, his girlfriend's over, they're going to be, they're at a party, and they're going to be possibly, getting down, and she, of course, is going to, I guess, take a shower.
I'm consistently surprised that you've had sex, Sean.
This is all cover. I'm actually pretty smooth.
Sorry, go on.
So yeah, his girlfriend's gonna, I guess, freshen up, and he's just waiting for her, and Half Dead sneaks in to the bathroom, and we get a very dark and very bleak scene when he proceeds to rape and murder Too Sweet's girlfriend in the bathroom.
It's a brutal scene, and the fact, I think for me, that what drives it home even more so is the fact that they are just separated by that thin door.
Yeah.
And Too Sweet is just the outside, not knowing what's happening, and because of like the shower, I think the shower or the sink, something's going, so we can't hear anything.
Yeah,
the
shower's on.
Yeah. So it's the brutality of the scene itself, which is, again, I think it's brutally done. But then also when the film keeps cutting over to Too Sweet, just kind of sitting there, excited and waiting for her to come out, and happy, and it's just that thin door that's separating him from the nightmare that's happening to her.
Yeah, it's I was kind of shocked that it got that real in the film, because with the opening crawl and everything, you're expecting, all right, here we go, more kind of campy boxing, but that scene kind of moves the plot forward, and Too Sweet gets back in to boxing. He wants to train, and now I'm fuzzy on why he wanted to. Was there a tournament? There wasn't, like, Half Dead, like, he's not going to be joining any tournament, but I can't remember why he wanted to go back to boxing.
Well, I think ends up with no choice. He's kind of like just kind of flattened and devastated, and this will give him a chance to just bust loose with the violence. Because you don't like. It's a weird thing too, because I guess I shouldn't worry about spoiling a 30-year-old movie or however old it is.
We can roll a little bit carefully, I guess, though.
Yeah, but it's not like a simple, straightforward revenge tale. I mean, he doesn't go through this and then go after Half Dead, which is what you expect because of what this heinous act that Half Dead has committed. Instead, Too Sweet goes off on his own path of renewed violence, with Half Dead still kind of like weaving his way through there, but the two of them don't end up having a face off,
right?
Which you would expect,
right? And I was kind of expecting that to happen. So Too Sweet joins the gym, and who's there as the trainer? Mr. T, playing himself. But he's like,
which is how he's playing a good guy and not like the bad guy like in Rocky III or something like that.
Right. Yeah, which is really funny. But he's pretty subdued. He's in trainer mode here, and I actually liked seeing Mr. T kind of in more of a subdued role.
Yeah, he's very casual in it, and I mean he does a good job where I wouldn't be surprised if this was like his. I mean, he's playing his own a character with his own name himself basically, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is basically just him because he's very serious and focused when he's on either a boxing scene or like a sparring scene, or where he's imparting a lesson like he used to do on his old cartoon. So those moments he's very serious, but then like on the turn of a dime he can like flick and like be like a bit more playful and casual. And I imagine that's exactly what he was. And he just walked on set and played himself, and that was it.
Yeah. No, it was easy money for Mr. T, for sure. But this was still low budget, so we're not talking like huge amounts of dollars. But so now where the movie kind of gets a little more playful, just like with the first movie, is when these boxing scenes happen because they're taking place in these prisons. Now, in the first one, there was kind of the women prison with the men's prison. They kind of had something going where they can sneak away and have sex or fool around.
That's what I was mentioning earlier, where like in the middle of this important fight scene, the film keeps cutting away to this indifferent no-name character prisoner basically who's like sneaking away to have sex. And it's intercutting what should have been the point of the movie, with these like two again strangers having sex in a bathroom. So it was odd, but it was, again, you feel like it's part of these characters.
Yeah. So that's back again here, and this time the main the main subplot is this little person, inmate
Tony Cox from Bad Santa.
Yeah, Tony Cox. They're playing, what are they playing? Jacks or dice or whatever. He's trying to earn some money so he can basically pay for some sex. And he's, you're kind of just hoping it's going to happen for the guy.
And what's weird too, and I like between the two, I prefer the first movie, for various reasons. But this one of the things where I think it kind of falls backwards is in these scenes, because whereas in the first movie you feel like it's just like, okay, yeah, we got to throw in this again, we need some sex scenes, we need some TNA, all this kind of stuff, and it feels like it's to bolster the idea that the movie is fits into the whole blaxploitation genre.
Right.
Here it's, you have the same kind of thread going with Tony Cox's character, but it doesn't ever actually become like a TNA situation. It just played for laughs, and it's stretched out for laughs throughout the I think 2 different fights that go on in the movie. But it's the movie is, aside from that early rape scene, which is again brutal and just over the top, and that's the exploitation aspect of the film. The rest of it doesn't feel as interested in getting into that kind of stuff. It feels more like it was, especially with the inclusion of Mr. T, it feels more like it's kind of aimed at, kind of like having some, moral ideas or moral lessons, and less interested in kind of, pushing the buttons of the subgenre.
Yeah. Yeah. Now this was fun to watch. I agree. Like the first one, is a lot more affecting, I think, for me, as far as a straightforward film, and you're kind of, really rooting for this character. This one you still are. Like, I think that Leon Isaac Kennedy is fantastic in this role. He's very earnest and you really are rooting for him in his character. But yeah, this was a fun follow up, and now that I've seen this, I'm really jonesing to watch the third one. So
that's what I'm curious about too, because I do feel like even though this one drops it as far as I think again the exploitative elements or the character elements, I think the fight scenes here, I think they devoted more time and energy to prepping the fight scenes. So I think it's visible in the actual action in the ring, especially where it feels like, they spent time choreographing it and stuff like that. And so I'd be curious where a third film would go tone wise and action wise. Yeah. So hopefully it does get a release at some point.
This one Penitentiary II does have one of the most insane fight scenes I think I've seen in a film, with Ernie Hudson wearing a clown wig I believe it's in the locker room.
Yeah. with Mr. T, isn't it?
No, it's with Too Sweet. So they
they fight though. I thought doesn't he just like drug him?
I think so. I guess it's no, they kind of wrestle around sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, we do have the Ernie Hudson versus Mr. T scene as well in the locker room, and it's like I kind of wish it was Too Sweet versus.
That's what I'm saying. I think that like a traditional, like a traditional exploitative film is you're going to have this idea of revenge, and this dude. I mean, for what this half dead character does, I mean, you want his ass to be kicked. Yeah. And so, but the fact that it ends up not being our main character doing it, but instead we get Mr. T fighting, and that's again I think plays into what I was saying about the because it's Mr. T being this. Again, just the nice guy, who has values and morals, is the one who's combating the absolute horrific sleaze of Ernie Hudson, and so it feels like that's kind of again part and parcel of what the movie is doing, more so with the lighter nature of it, as opposed to the pure exploitative thrills of revenge.
Yeah. Well, these two flicks are very fun. They're stacked with features, and like I said, these come from because Vinegar Syndrome has licensed a lot of Xenon Pictures, so this is definitely this is why we're getting them here. I forgot to ask Brandon what the status was for Sweet Sweetback's badass song, but that should be coming from them. I would imagine they're kind of deep in preparations for it, because they probably want that to be a big deal, of course. Right. So yeah, these Xenon Pictures are just a lot of fun to kind of dive into. I'm a huge fan of blaxploitation and exploitation, and I think these two are a great set to get, because I hadn't seen these, and it's a different take on kind of the standard blaxploitation type flick. So I would definitely recommend people give these a shot.
Same.
Let's move into some sexploitation, shall we?
Oh, always.
I know you're always up for that. Let's talk a little bit about the release of Fugitive Girls, otherwise known as 5 Loose Women.
Fugitive girls caught in a web of desire, betrayed by her lover, pimp killer, dope smuggler, bank embezzler, lesbian, leader of the pack.
Now, this is a women in prison or type flick. Women escape from prison.
Briefly in prison, yeah.
Yeah. But it kind of has those same tropes a little bit with, a woman who really shouldn't be there, ending up in prison, and kind of, these tough and
lesbians. You can say lesbians, Sean.
Lesbians. Well, one for sure is. I don't know if the other ones just kind of go along with it, because she's kind of the dominant. I don't know.
Good Christ, a lesbian. Favorite line in the movie.
Oh man, where to start with this thing? I had some fun watching it. I kind of lost interest here and there, but this thing is it surprised me.
I love it
quite a bit. What do you love about Fugitive Girls?
I'm developing a sweet tooth for films not directed by, but ones written by Ed Wood. His directorial efforts, not so much, but the ones where he's just is the writer and someone else is handling, crafting it into the visuals and all that. I'm just in love with the dialogue and what he does with these characters, the scenarios, the situations. And this one here, it kind of reminded me a little bit of The Violent Years, which, speaking of AGFA earlier, they put out that one on Blu-ray, which is a great one and well worth picking up as well. As far as having these this badass girls out in the world, I mean, it does get into the prison part, like you mentioned earlier, after she is mistakenly charged with being associated with her boyfriend's act of violence, whatever it is, and that's where she's inducted into this hardcore lesbians power grip. But then once it gets outside, though, it reminds me of The Violent Years, because you have these women who are just on a rampage. I mean, they run into various things that should be trouble. There's a great scene where they come across some bad looking bikers and stuff like that, and you think, okay, where this is going to go. These ladies are in for trouble, but nope. they just kick ass. Yeah. And it's just a fun romp. I mean, there are serious bits, but there's serious ones that come with a heavy dollop of exploitation. It's like when they take over they do the home invasion. Yeah. On the couple and the guys in a wheelchair. Man, it's just it's offensive but hilarious. Just again, over the top. Yeah. I'm just a huge fan.
This thing doesn't let up either, with the sexploitation stuff too. I was surprised at the level, because I was expecting some just R-rated flick, but there's towing the line. Yeah,
it gets plenty dirty
of just outside of penetration type stuff.
Oh yeah. They're showing the bits, and you just don't get to go inside. But yeah.
Right. And especially the first scene when she's in jail, her first night, and the main lesbian decides that she's gonna have some fun,
indoctrinate her.
Yeah, it's just I didn't really know how to react to it, because it was disturbing in a sense, and then just very weird, and I wasn't expecting it at all, and so I was like, all right, well, that's where this film's going. And then later on, when they basically rape a guy. Right? I mean, they gang up on this guy.
Which again is another reminder of The Violent Years, where the girls are the ones that they just basically turn the tables, and they're the ones in control. Yeah. And I just think you don't see that, obviously, and especially for people who watch exploitation films, 99.9% of the time, it's the women who are just being brutalized, abused, taken advantage of, this, that, everything else. And so I will always welcome the opportunity to see a movie, especially one with dialogue like this, where the women are the ones that are just getting out there and saying, fuck everyone, we're in charge. Yeah. And so it's a lot of fun. Yeah. And they even though it turns obviously violent and deadly and everything else, but it's still fun. It's still a fun.
Yeah,
watch.
they're flawed characters. We're not supposed to be cheering them on, of course. And another part of this movie that I absolutely loved was when they came across the hippies, and of course, in the 70s, it was the free love is raining, and one of the first moments they all just decided to take off their shirts, and there's just plenty of fucking in the dirt out there outside of vans and campfires and everything. This is a wild flick.
I mean, what else is there to do outside? There
really isn't very much else to do. I mean, if you're out and but this thing's a lot of fun and surprising if you haven't seen too many of these films. I was expecting this kind of just women in prison film, and it kind of turns it on its head, and it's just was really fun to check out. And then when I found out that Ed Wood had a hand in the screenplay, I was like, wow, that's it's very interesting that his almost screenplays were like you said, better than his directing efforts, and to just add this to your to your
Yeah,
to your
I just
stack
think,
of things to
he's
check out.
an interesting, obviously, well documented, fascinating filmmaker.
Yeah.
But for me, as far as my actual enjoyment of the movies, I will always defer to the ones where he just served as the writer and maybe showed up as a cameo of some kind, but and leave the directing to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, he was credited for writing Orgy of the Dead, and I did not enjoy that film as a film.
That was not good. There's the exception to my rule.
Yeah, well, that's more of a party movie you just kind of put on, and if I ran like a really cool hip bar, like that thing would be on every now and then as people are drinking, hands down, no question. All right, so that's Fugitive Girls. I
will say before, I don't know if you're going to get to it, but one of the extras on this disc is a commentary track with
with Frank.
Yep. It's got a biographer, an Ed Wood biographer on there who offers like a lot of good, interesting tidbits on Wood. But Frank Henenlotter is, if anytime he's talking, you want to listen because one, the dude is super freaking knowledgeable. But two, he's hilarious, and so he's I put him in the same category as like a John Waters as far as when it comes to commentaries. They should just be automatic listens after you watch the movie because whether it's his own movie or not, his one for Frankenhooker is also great, his own movie. Cool, yeah. Here, I mean, the guy just knows his shit and is a very funny guy.
Very nice. I almost need to somehow get these commentaries onto like my iPhone or something and listen to them at work.
Right.
I never have time to listen to these like at home just because the kids running around and everything. And if I'm home and I'm gonna pay attention to the TV, I'm watching a movie I haven't seen. But yeah, this one we also have let's see, there's not like a whole lot of extras on this. This isn't as stacked as the other ones, but there is an audio interview with Tally Cochran. That would be fun to check out as well. So,
yeah, I gave part of that a listen, and she's obviously working, knowledgeable and talking about the production stuff like that. Yeah. But if you can only listen to one of those tracks, so you want to go with the Henenlotter one.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on to the two. We're getting into batshit territory, and I'm all here for it. Next up, let's talk about 1977's Prey.
What we have is real, Jessica. Must never lose it.
Do other people live here?
Only the two of us.
Will other people come to live here?
What a funny question.
Lord, it's no good to cry, except the arms of a stranger.
Prey. This is 1977 British independent sci-fi-ish horror movie.
It's definitely got the sci-fi bent, but because I feel it's kind of minor to the movie as a whole, it's definitely more horror and domestic drama.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So Barry Stokes plays an alien who has landed on Earth. He is carnivorous and looking for some protein. He's not a vegan. However, he does run into a couple of lesbian vegans, played by Glory Annan and Sally Faulkner. And there's some tension between these two women. And you kind of notice right away that one of the women, I believe it's Sally Faulkner, she's kind of the more in charge, I guess. She knows what she wants. She's kind of I don't know, like there's something going on with her, and she's very not intimidating, but her and so Josephine, played by Sally Faulkner, and Jessica, played by Glory Annan. There's some, like I said, tension in the relationship, and they are obviously, at first I was like, oh, are they friends? Are they sisters? And then you realize no.
And then you're like, sacre bleu, lesbians.
They're lovers. And so we're kind of wrapped into kind of their like domestic drama. They're living in this large house and on this property in
just get to the sex, Sean.
Okay. The sex is great. This is another one where I was kind of surprised they're going some places, and I was like, wow, it's getting a little steamy in here. My kids better not walk in right now.
You gotta start investing in some locks for your doors.
I do, but then what will just happen? Like they'll just start pounding on it, and then dad.
Well, then you bust out the duct tape and you tie their hands to their legs.
So this couple stumbles across our alien friend here, and they befriend him because he seems lost. And so they're the main thing about them is they're vegan. Are they vegan or vegetarian? Is it explained?
I'm not sure if it's specified. I know that they don't. I don't think they ate any dairy products in the course of the movie, but I don't know if they specified.
Okay, so we have this kind of fish out of water humor, I guess, with them trying to feed him, their stuff, and that this guy is, he wants meat, but they're trying to feed him, their tea and then vegetables and everything, and he is not having it.
Yeah, he's like a vampire in that he can only stomach the one thing he needs, and everything else is like makes him vomit.
So man, where do we go with this thing?
I had never heard of this movie, which is again one of the many things I love about Vinegar Syndrome. I had never heard of this film before they announced it, and so it's a fascinating little movie because the first, it's a short movie too. It's like under 80 minutes, but the first 15 minutes and like the last 15 minutes are just terrific horror. There's bloody bits because he is this carnivorous humanoid creature from outer space, and so you see the results of that. And then in the middle, though, you have this again this domestic drama between these two women who are together but are obviously having their own issues, which is why the younger one is so welcoming to this visitor. It happens to be a man, but it's I think she's happy to have anybody there, but the fact that it's a man is an extra level of interest for her. And so, but then of course that makes the older one, jealous and uncomfortable. And so you have that dynamic of these. It becomes kind of like a, I don't know, like I said, it's just the contrast of like the younger woman is obviously with the older woman, but she's also drawn towards the man, and so it becomes like an odd little love triangle that because
the lesbian relationship is almost like an abusive relationship in a sense, not necessarily physically, but mentally. The way she's crying, I think it was Josephine.
The older one is domineering, and then also jealous of this intrusion.
Yes.
But that's also where, and it was kind of odd for me, anyways, because again, it just feels like it shifts gears into this drama about these characters who are like having relationship troubles, and then here comes this cannibalistic creature. But even that domestic drama part though then takes a little bit of a turn when they start mentioning like a past person who had been there, a past guest at the house,
Stanley. Yeah,
and so it adds another kind of little twist, another little layer to their relationship, but also to the path of the story. And so what you start with is like this killer creature and these two essentially innocent women. Mm-hmm. Obviously having their own issues, but they're still like potential victims, and the movie just does something I think interesting with that dynamic.
Yeah, definitely this is one that I do not want to give too much away for sure, because it was such a fun film to discover, and I don't think it was really all that available before being released here. But yeah, I mean that middle part I kind of had to ease into it because I was expecting this kind of campy, alien horror movie, basically, But when it takes in this more of a domestic drama, I had to kind of just sit back and relax and kind of watch everything unfold. And when it does, I think your patience is rewarded with where things go in the end of the film, and it definitely give this thing, like if you feel like you're waning in the middle of the film, like I guarantee you just stick with it, because
it's short enough too that I don't think you're going to get bored with it. No. I mean, you might be temporarily kind of confused as far as like the tonal shift and what's happening. but it's short enough, like I said, that if you do stick with it, and that middle part, it does have. I mean, it keeps you, if you're into these kind of things, it keeps you entertained with some skin shenanigans. But then also, if you kind of listen to the the exchanges back and forth, there are little hints kind of dropped as far as, again, this relationship, and then the turn it takes, and then the film's end itself is very Twilight Zone-ish. I think it feels like the end, the coda there. It feels like it's kind of thing that could be like in the last minute of like a Rod Serling Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is a lot of fun to check out. So this as well, the special features on here. A commentary track with the director Norman Warren, and then Sally Faulkner appears as well in the commentary track, and then there's some interviews with the director and Sally Faulkner and I believe the producer Terry Marcel. So a lot of fun and unexpected. Just like I kind of expect this with Vinegar Syndrome a lot, because I know that I know that every time I get a film from them, with the exception of things that I've seen before or heard of before, like Hobgoblins or Ice Cream Man, I know that I'm going to get something special and something I haven't seen, and something that's a little bit different than most other things that these other labels are releasing. And there's always something special about these, so definitely a lot of fun. And I always know that they're not kind of what they seem they will be. So, which brings us to, holy shit, Lucifer's women.
He made them become his slaves, to worship his unholy deeds, to love the devil. Lucifer's women.
Suppose that there was a man who could make you do whatever he wanted you to. I want a life. We need a pure soul. She'll do. Life itself is so strong that it defies the bounds of petty logic and mere causality.
Now, this is also known as, or edited into, Dr. Dracula. And directed by
Not to be confused with Dr. Acula.
Yes. Directed by Paul Arato, who also directed China Girl. This is about a magician who also maybe dabbles into the occult.
Like most magicians.
Most of them do, for sure. And he performs in like this burlesque club, and he's basically befriends one of the burlesque dancers, and he may have other uses for her as he starts to kind of woo her. Man, this thing is crazy. I haven't seen Dr. Dracula. Have you seen both cuts?
I haven't watched that cut of it yet. No.
Okay, because apparently it was too much. Like, there was too much sexy time going on in this film, and they couldn't get, I guess, distribution with all in there. They cut it down to, I guess, into Dr. Dracula, and that's what got the actual release. So this cut,
well, they added footage too. Adams added footage, which kind of made it lighter.
Yeah, they worked it into kind of a completely different feel. So all these last three movies, Fugitive Girls, Prey, and Lucifer's Women, have a lot of, for me, it was like a lot of unexpected sexy time. And
I have to ask, Sean, as someone who has watched Vinegar Syndrome releases before, why sex scenes are unexpected in Vinegar Syndrome releases.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a surprise. It really...
These are the movies that I tweeted about it last month at some point, but these are the movies that when I watch, even during the day, I found myself having to keep a hand ready for the remote control to turn the volume down, because out of the blue, there could be like some slasher or whatever, maybe out of the blue, it'll just shift, and all of a sudden there's just loud moans and screams going on.
Yeah.
And so I've got to turn it down so my neighbors don't suspect things.
I shouldn't be surprised. And, what it is, whatever. But this thing, man, I think it has one of the best black mass scenes I think I've ever seen committed to film. How do you rate that scene compared to other satanic films that you've seen in the past?
It feels like it's more. I mean, it's one of the ones I think Anton LaVey oversaw, and but he did a few of these. He did a few of these. He farmed himself out to a few movie productions. It feels less. It feels like a good mix of theatrical, but also I don't want to use the word authentic, obviously, because it's all essentially gibberish, but I mean, as far as it feels like, it's the kind of thing that the people doing these kind of things would do, but then also a little bit of theatricality. So I think it works well, and it does break up and offer like a nice contrast to the goofiness, the mellow goofiness of our main character, this magician, because his magic is kind of like okay, magic, and then to toss, which is again not it's its own little thing. It's more show, more for show, more for entertainment, and then to shift to this other kind of again theatricality with the devil worshippers. I think it's a good contrast.
Well, he's kind of a goofy guy as well. He's this lanky guy. He has this really crazy, goatee, and he's always like trying to give like these intense stares. And that's broken up a little bit. Like when there's a scene where he is actually he's had a little bit too much champagne. And he's like kind of wobbly, he's doing the George Clooney head wobble a little bit.
It's Larry Hankin is the guy playing him. And he's like even if you don't recognize the name, I mean, listeners, I mean, you recognize his face. I mean, he's a big time character actor. And this is my only experience of finding him or seeing him in a, what amounts to a lead role. So I think I always love when like characters or actors are given that kind of opportunity. But so he is kind of kind of an oddball, both because of his physical features, but also just the way his acting style. And so in the presence of this, slowly developing plot, I think it works really well because he does provide his personality, his persona. What you get off of him doesn't feel like where the movie ends up going with the sex and with the violence and with the devil aspect of it.
So, and I'm so curious to see the difference between these two cuts, because I think John Carradine is in Dr. Dracula. He's not in this,
which makes sense because John Carradine is not. I mean, it makes sense that he would show up as kind of like a grim character, but like with a more comical tone. I mean that's where he fits. Whenever I see him now, I think of his the Woody Allen movie, Everything You Want to Know About Sex But We're Afraid to Ask, because he plays kind of a mad scientist in that, and that's whenever I see him in any film now, that's how I see him as. Spooky and like, creepy, but then also just, a loopy dude who's got some like weird ideas. And so I would imagine that's how he's going to appear in this other cut.
I'm trying to find the actress's name, but she is kind of partial to
these about the Trilby character.
I think so.
Jane Brunel Cohen.
Yes. Yeah. Cause she's partial to these little sex comics. And then her roommate is kind of this, sexually frustrated, woman as well. And, there's a little like kind of love triangle in this film as well with, these two women. And then, with our magician and everything. And, but no, I had a lot of fun with this flick, and, it's batshit as I could expect for sure.
It's interesting because it's, I mean, to your earlier point too, it's a movie that you think like you can sum it up kind of, or if you read like a 1 or 2 line, summation of the film, it's like, okay, a magician,
right,
is involved with eternal life, and sacrifices, blah, blah, blah. But because of its tone and because of, for me, a large part of because of Hankin in that lead role, it kind of is a little bit more of a human element to it. And then all these other, the sex and the nudity and, and the satanic elements are kind of layered on top of that. But I think that his presence, again, for me, I think his presence in that lead role, it starts you off on a, not necessarily relatable because he can relate to magicians, but again, kind of a human, just a familiar foot. And so I think that helps where it ends up going. It helps it be more effective.
Yeah. Well, he's also kind of like not really doing this all on his own. Like he's kind of being coerced a little bit or forced to find this woman for this ritual. Like you kind of see that too, where because as he's striking up this relationship, you can tell he's a little bit, apprehensive to going through with everything. You can tell that he's, I don't know. I thought that was a very interesting point because he could just be this evil villain, but you kind of do feel for him a little bit on what he's going through as well.
His relationship with the dude, the guy who comes into his life and kind of drags him along in this and uses him basically for the same purpose, for this eternal life and for this the devil worshiping angle of it. Their relationship is kind of like a bad influence thing. That movie with Rob Lowe and James Spader, where you have a guy who just is normal, he's getting by, and then this bad influence shows up and just kind of starts shifting him slowly, pushing him a little bit further and further and further towards bad things.
I loved the sawing the woman in half scene, because halfway through you're like, holy shit, this isn't going to end well. Like this is, you know what I mean? Like it actually, for a fleeting moment in the film, I actually felt a little tense because most of these films are kind of goofy or whatever, even if they're trying to be serious. But that scene itself, like I thought was pretty great. And if I would have seen this as a young kid or something, that scene especially probably would have had an effect on me. But I thought that was really fantastic.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes to the film's ability to, again, it plays with tones well and kind of sets you at ease, but then will kind of reveal, again, these darker elements plot-wise, but also because of those elements showing up, you then, what would have been like a simple, magic trick becomes a bit more ominous. This one has a commentary track with the producer of Dr. Dracula, and it also comes with the DVD has the actual film of Dr. Dracula on this. So I'm very excited to kind of compare these two. I didn't have time to compare them to before our conversation today, but it's definitely, the more I read about it, the more I'm like, wow, I thought that Dr. Dracula was just this. They just took out, some of the more X-ish rated elements, but they actually reworked it into a completely different film, and so I'm interested in checking that one out. And it was the one, the reworked Dr. Dracula one is the one that actually got the release.
Yeah.
From my understanding, that's the one that actually got out there and got play.
Yeah.
And that people saw, whereas the Lucifer's Women cut was pretty much buried.
Yeah.
Until Vinegar Syndrome came along.
Praise be to the dark Vinegar Syndrome gods or something. All right. Anyway, pretty good little batch of flicks this time around, and had a lot of fun discovering these. Like I said, BJ will be joining us to talk about the porno. All right, Rob. I guess Brad didn't join us, so I want to thank you for.
All right, pants going back on.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry to disappoint. Thanks for coming on, man, and talking about these with me, and I'm sure we'll have you on again for some more stuff for sure. Yeah.
Of course, I'm always happy to be here. Thank you very much for having me on.
What are we talking about?
Porn.
Oh, yeah. That's it. Let's do it. Come on. Pull that hair. Get a thumb in there. Get a thumb in there. Get a thumb in there. I'm there. I'm there. Don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop. Finish.
Hello, Screamcast listeners. This is one of your co-hosts, BJ Colangelo, and let me first just say I am so sorry that I wasn't able to be a part of the normal show with everyone else. I've been under the weather and dealing with a whole lot of other nonsense as per usual. What else is new? But luckily for you, I am here to talk about my favorite sort of film that we cover on the Screamcast. Adult entertainment, erotica, pornography, whatever you want to call it. And as always, the wonderful people at Vinegar Syndrome have provided us with a slew of tantalizing and titillating titles for us to talk about. I have 5 of them to talk about today. And again, these are all from Vinegar Syndrome. They're great people. So in addition to the wonderful genre titles that they restore, they also do provide a healthy dose of adult entertainment. So if you're not into the pornography or the adult entertainment side of this podcast, I guess tune out now. Join us back when we're talking about horror movies or whatever else tickles your fancy. But for the rest of you smut peddlers out there, this one's for you. So the first one that I want to talk about is the combo release of Velvet High and Summertime Blue. So what both of these titles have in common is that these are from John Christopher. John Christopher was pretty prolific. He did a lot of films in a short period of time, and these are two that I think kind of get forgotten about. And I can say that wholeheartedly because I had never heard of them until we got these. Velvet High is about, a schoolgirl named Velvet, because what else would her name be? Played by Misty Regan. And it's pretty paint by numbers as far as the kind of schoolgirl fantasy. It's, discovering her first erotic experiences and discovering the kinks and things that she likes. This also has a very early performance from Jerry Butler. It's fine. There's nothing super exciting about it. If you're into the schoolgirl thing, if that's sort of your fix, then, this is a great one to add to that canon. But, really, it wasn't anything that kind of blew me away. I think for me, after a while, the whole schoolgirl angle kind of gets lost on me because I've seen it done so many times and it's kind of hard to fuck it up. So there's nothing inherently wrong with it, but there's nothing really all that new to the table. In addition to that, there's also Summertime Blue, which again, this is very kind of paint by numbers, as it's focusing on, two friends on the last day of summer vacation before having to go to school the next day. And they decide what better way to spend the last day of summer than to just fuck each other's brains out and explore all of their sexual desires. And I mean, it's fine. It's kind of what you're going to get for if you're looking for sort of the youth gone wild discovery of self. If that's your thing, then these are two that I think you'll really enjoy. These are 2K restorations from 16 millimeter film, so it looks nice. I do think that they've had better restorations before, but nothing about this looks bad. There is also an audio interview on Velvet High with Misty Regan. I did not watch it, but I'm sure that I will at some point, because I always find the most fascinating thing is to talk to porn stars long after they've been part of something, because there's always a lot of different schools of thought on how people feel about it. If you ever get the chance to watch the documentary After Porn Ends, it's always really funny because a lot of the newer girls are like, oh, it was the most traumatic thing I ever did, I regret it. And then you have a vintage classic like Seika who's like, yeah, it's a thing I did and it was great and now I don't do it anymore, move on. So I'm curious to see how Misty stands by it. Okay, so the next title that I want to talk about is Young Girls 2. Young Girls 2 is a, I guess, autobiographical tale of Erica Boyer. Erica Boyer was a huge name in the 80s in erotic and adult cinema. And this is really interesting. It's directed by Bob Fosse, and it is I'm not sure how much of this is accurate and how much of this has obviously been played up because it's an adult movie. But it's a biographical look at Erica Boyer and how she kind of came to be. Her little humble beginnings as being, this prude younger girl, and then kind of moving forward towards, the sexual awakening she had in her college years until she finally completely owned her sexuality and became a full-fledged sex starlet. This is one of the more ambitious titles I think Vinegar Syndrome's ever gotten their hands on, because it's so different, because it's a biopic. It makes it a little bit more exciting because this is somebody's real life. I think a lot of the fascination that people have today with sort of the amateur and camming industry is that sense of realness, that these are real people, that it's not manufactured, it's not fabricated. And while this is very, kind of skinamaxy at times, I think it's really interesting that, it has Erica Boyer in it herself, and you can kind of play with the idea of, well, what part of this has been, exaggerated for the purpose of filming and how much of this is real. So if you're looking for something really different, this is one that I do recommend. It is pretty hot at times. It has some really good scenes in it, so I would suggest checking that out. It's a 2K restoration from the 35mm original camera negative, so it looks fucking great. It looks really, really, really nice. So this one, I think of those 3 titles, Young Girls Do is definitely the one that I would recommend the most. The next title that I would like to talk about is Nightcaller. Nightcaller is Anthony Spinelli. It's an adult thriller, which is definitely something that I'm into. It's got everything that you could want out of kind of that mid-70s sleazy, grindhousey adult film. Like, this is definitely something that I probably would have wanted to check out in like a 42nd Street theater. It's got that sort of feel to it. So I know a lot of people out there who listen to the show are big fans of kind of the grimy, gritty, filthy sort of adult titles that Vinegar Syndrome puts out, and this is definitely one of them. What I do find most interesting is that because this is an adult thriller, a lot of times these films are able to play on their own if you were to take out any of the sex in it. And I think Nightcaller is one of those as well. So if you're somebody who's not super into adult cinema because you don't really like the sex aspects of it, you're still going to get a really awesome story out of this one. It's a hardcore film, but I don't know. It's hard to really pinpoint exactly who I think this audience is for, because it has kind of those gritty, gross, sleazy elements, but at the same time, you know, it can kind of stand alone as a film outside of the adult aspects of it. Kind of like a brief synopsis. It has to deal with this like kind of scrawny, like gross guy who's, you know, peeping Tom on his neighbors that are, you know, doing it. And, you know, he looks up their phone number and starts calling them and starts making obscene phone calls. And that's like his thing that he's into, which, I mean, looking at it from today's lens, like that's very much like harassment, and that's not hot or sexy in any stretch of the imagination. But I also have been trying to get better at not using kind of a woke and modern lens on things that, you know, are from a different time period. It's crazy because it at moments is very, very, it's very sexy, but at the same time, like, I feel really bad for watching it, like, because you're not supposed to identify with kind of like this main gross guy, but because you're looking at everything through his lens, since he's the one, you know, creeping and peeping, it's very voyeuristic at times. So if you're into voyeurism, I mean, you're gonna feel right at home. For me, it's a little upsetting, but I think that's why I like this movie so much, is because it does, you know, it fucks with the senses. It makes you feel gross, but at the same time, it also turns you on a little bit. So, highly recommend Nightcaller. I think it's more of a psychological thriller than it is a sex film, but it's a psychological thriller that happens to have sex in it. It looks really nice. The colors in it are really beautiful. There's like a lot of really vibrant reds in it. It's kind of giallo in that regard at times. So, you know, check that one out. And then the crown jewel of what Vinegar Syndrome sent to me this month is something that I had actually asked them about personally, last year. One of my friends was gifted an old Playboy, and there was an interview in it where this woman was talking about being in a little movie called Mary Mary, and I had never heard of it. The synopsis alone just kind of blew my mind, and I immediately hit up the Vinegar Syndrome boys, and I was like, for the love of God, if you don't have this in your catalog, please get it, because I really, really want to listen to it, and I want to watch it, and I want to know everything about it. And they did disclose to me at the time, they're like, hey, it's not been announced yet, but we do have it, and it's coming out next year. So this has been my most anticipated of all of the adult films, and I'm so glad that it came out this early in the year, because I think I would have died if I had to wait any longer. So Mary Mary is a brief synopsis. A married man suffering from erectile dysfunction sells his soul after the devil makes him an offer he can't refuse. Fuck yes, that is everything that I want. It's, you know, fucking Faust. That's everything that I want. the leading lady in Mary Mary is Constance Money. She was only in 8 films, but she was in the opening of Misty Beethoven, which is, you might as well be in Debbie Does Dallas or Deep Throat at that point. Like, that is, pinnacle of adult entertainment. Everything about Mary Mary is what I love about adult film. There's such a ridiculous storyline of, selling your soul to the devil. Like, I just feel like that kind of goes hand in hand with like pizza delivery guy plumber storylines, where it's just like, of course that's a porno. Like, nobody questions that. There are 9 total sex scenes, and they are all super well made, very hot. There is one that in particular is a dinner scene, and it incorporates food as foreplay, which is something that I'm always into because it can go one of 2 ways. It can either be super disgusting and revolting, or it can be really, really attractive. And this one, it's super attractive. There's also there's a pretty intense orgy scene in this, but at the same time, like, there's a high-speed chase, and there's like this ridiculous narrative of, selling your soul to the devil. I cannot recommend this one enough. I think of all the titles they've ever put out, this is easily in the tops for me. So if you get the chance, check out Mary Mary for sure. Nightcaller, I also recommend. And then, the other 2, kind of your standard fare. This is not the only adult titles that they release. These are just the ones that I was able to actually watch. Some of the other ones that they let out are 101 Acts of Love and Love Therapy. Those 2 I didn't get a chance to check out yet. Hopefully Brad did, but if not, I can try to bring those up for a doorstep segment on a later date. But yeah, that's it for me, and that's it for the back room. I hope that you enjoyed this little segment, and watch yourself some porn. It's good for you.
That'll do it for this week's episode of the Screamcast. I want to thank all of you for listening to the show. Huge thank you to Vinegar Syndrome for making these special episodes possible. Thank you to Brandon Upson for joining me, as well as Rob Hunter for filling in for Brad Henderson. Please check out all the other shows available on the Screaming Pods Network over at screamingpods.com. Especially check out our sister show, Splathouse, and our illegitimate child, the SOV Pod with Brad Henderson and Mike Delaney. I, Sean DeRager, also have a little side project. Once a month, you can hear me talk sci-fi movies on Xenopod from the year 5000. But please check out all the other podcasts over on the Screaming Pods Network. A lot of great variety there. I'm really excited at the combination of shows that we've brought together. If you would like to become a member of Club Scum, head over to patreon.com/scream_cast. You will get an official membership card. You will get access to some bonus content. Right now, I have a series called Sean's Stack that I'm doing, where I go through basically my to-watch pile. You can hear episode 2 up over there. I'm about to start a series on the Indicator Blu-ray box sets, including some Ray Harryhausen stuff, some Hammer stuff. So I'm pretty pumped to dive into all those. Again, check those out over at patreon.com/scream_cast. Become a Club Scum official member. Also, please check out our store. We have official Screamcast mugs, screamingpods.com/store. A lot of other podcasts soon will have merchandise in that store. We're trying to test it out, check it out. But Kevin Spencer, of course, designed our logo, and he did a couple of varieties. We have an official Screamcast mug available over there for purchase. I want to thank all of our sponsors. You can head over to the screamcast.com/sponsors and check all of them out. Of course, Vinegar Syndrome, who was the subject of our show today. If you dig coffee, head over to coffeeshopofhorrors.com. Use the code Screamcast. You'll get 10% off of your order. Also, grindhousevideo.com. Find all your exploitation, your drama, your smut, and cult classics over there. Of course, labels like Arrow Films and Vinegar Syndrome are in their store, so please check them out and let them know we sent you. Music on this episode by Wolfmen of Mars, and Kevin Spencer is responsible for the look of our show. Thank you. I want to thank him so much for doing all that hard work to kind of revamp our look. Again, you can hear past episodes over at thescreamcast.com. That is it for this episode. Next episode, we plan to be covering on VHS The Devil's Gift from 1984. So track that down and you can check it out before we discuss it. We're also going to be discussing The Ritual and Tragedy Girls. So hopefully the whole gang will be back for that episode. And also, of course, Brad and I will be doing, I'm not sure if we'll do it as a supplemental, but we will definitely be reviewing, he'll be reviewing all the movies that he will be checking out over at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. All right, I want to thank all of you guys for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Oh, don't tell me you're leaving. The party's just begun.